Hello, my name is Chantal Klingbeil and I work for the Ellen G. White Estate in Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you for joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening. I'm not quite sure when, but it's nice to be with you. My area of interest is children and youth. Who doesn't like children? Maybe youth is a more complex area, but there's so much vitality and energy in these age groups. I'm thinking, and maybe you are too, how do we introduce Ellen White to our children and our youth? Unfortunately, so many of our children and our youth have no interest in Ellen White's writings, in actually exploring them for themselves. Of course, we can't expect young children to be reading Ellen White's writings, but we hope that there'd be enough interest generated that when they are old enough, they will be delighted to open Steps to Christ, to read Desire of Ages, to actually explore these treasure troves for themselves. But how do we make that jump for our children and our youth? Did you know that we make up our minds about whether or not we like someone within seconds? Yes, seconds of an introduction. And I know it's happened to you, it's definitely happened to me, where I've had to change my mind afterwards. But changing your mind is a hard thing. Once we've decided whether we like someone or we don't, we're kind of inclined to just stick with it. The same applies with Ellen White. Our children are being introduced. But how, you would say, how are our children being introduced? This isn't something conscious or specific. We probably don't sit down and say, all right, now I would want to introduce you to Ellen White. But our children are picking up throughout their childhood. They're picking up attitudes. They're picking up vibes from their community around them. These are either positive or negative, and eventually it will come out. Unfortunately, we meet with young people and we hear very often, "No, I'm not interested in Ellen White." Why not? Have you read something? Nah, never read anything. Not interested. Why? Oh no, she's boring. She's irrelevant. She's super critical of everything. It's not something that I'm interested in. Where have these people gotten these ideas? They've never read anything. They've picked it up from their environment. They have been introduced and they've made those connections. So how can we introduce Ellen White in a way that will really be positive, exciting, leave a good taste, so that when our children are old enough, they will say, "Let me read. I'd love to know. Give me that book." I'd like to suggest a couple of ways in which we can make that positive introduction. The first way I'd like to suggest is probably the most difficult. You and I are the introduction. Our children will associate Ellen White with us if we are talking about her, if we are quoting her. So, the kind of Christian experience that our children are seeing in us, they will connect with her. That's kind of, shall I say, a solemn thought. If our children see that reading Ellen White makes us into happy, positive, love-filled Christians, they will be very interested. If, on the other hand, reading Ellen White makes us critical of others, judgmental, angry, intolerant, they will associate those particular characteristics with Ellen White as well. So, first point would be, we are the introduction. We can't introduce someone we don't really know. Well, what else can we do to positively introduce our children to Ellen White? From very little, we can start telling stories. Human interest stories. Our children love stories. You've probably had to tell your childhood stories 1,000 times. Right from little, it's please tell me when you were little. Tell me what you did. Tell me about certain experiences. We can harness this desire for stories to introduce Ellen. Now, let's not introduce Ellen as some sort of saint, some sort of extraordinary, wonderful person. Let's introduce her as we would a beloved relative. Someone who gave their heart to Jesus. Someone who had struggles similar to what they were facing. I find it particularly nice, and I often get a very good feedback when I tell children about the struggles that Ellen had in her childhood with her conversion experience, how afraid she was of dying, how she was afraid of God, and how she came to know that God loved her and was with her even in these very difficult experiences that she had as a child. These are things that children can identify with. So tell those stories. You will enjoy the stories, and so will the children. Whatever we do, we don't want to introduce Ellen to our children for the first time with a Ellen White says you shouldn't statement. That does nothing for our children, aside from leaving a bad taste in their mouths. You may say, well, Ellen White does have a lot of very good, very pointed counsel that I would like my child to hear. That is true. That is true. The Bible contains lots of pointed counsel for us as well. But it is important that we have a relationship first. I will not accept discipline from you if I don't know that you love me and that you have my best interests at heart. Otherwise, I'm going to switch off. Beginning with Ellen White says you shouldn't does nothing to build a relationship. I might as well say someone else says. It makes no impact with our children. So it would be very important to never use Ellen White as a club or as a manipulative form to try to get our children to obey us. Ellen White's writings should be something special, something practical. We can make it that by quoting her, by sharing with our children, not pages and pages of reading that's beyond them and boring, but just a short little snippet, a one-liner from something that's really jumped out to you in your devotional reading of Ellen White. This makes a very good first impression. So, we would remember to not use Ellen White as a club, but as a bridge. Some form, some short little tidbit somewhere to give that positive association with Ellen White. Of course, we're talking about when children can actually read and interact. But even before they can read her books and interact with her writings for themselves, we can take these opportunities to create very positive branding, at least for her. You may say to yourself, well, I don't know too many stories. Where would I find stories to tell? How would I find these little nuggets to share with my children or with my youth? The Ellen G. White Estate has a lot of materials online that will help you to introduce your child to Ellen White through a really fun process. There are games to play, there are coloring in pages, there's recorded stories, there's short little video clips. There's lots and lots of material that you can find online on our website, ellenwhite.org, and you would just click under the kids icon to find a wealth of information and activities. If you don't want your child to be online for large amounts of time, we do have something physical that we could also show you. We have the SDA Heritage Box. This is a nice box that looks like an old trunk, an old traveling trunk, and it's loaded with wonderful resources that you can use for your child. We have puzzles, storybooks, coloring books, and games, as well as other resources that are all in our SDA Heritage Box. You can contact us at ellenwhite.org and just ask for the Heritage Box, and we can give you the information that you would need. Whatever you do, let's make a conscious decision to introduce our children to Ellen White. Let's not just leave them to make their own branding from society around them or from what they hear. Let's take an active role in making sure that that introduction is positive. Your children will be blessed. And let me tell you a secret. You and I are also blessed as we rediscover Ellen White with our children.